everybody, it's Mandy from Trouble Forge. So I started sourdough for like the 47th time, maybe 3-ish weeks ago. This is, like I said, multiple times I've tried this and I've failed, or I think I just gave up too soon. Now that I've done it successfully, I think I just gave up too soon. So Zad's sister Kelly gave me some starter in like October. It's now mid-December, like a week-ish before. Oh my gosh, it's actually just 1 week before Christmas. And I just stashed it in the fridge because I was like, oh, I don't have time for this. I'm going to fail, blah, blah, whatever. I finally just decided I can do this. This is conquerable. We are smart and we can do hard things. So we went to my parents last week, and just quick funny story. We went to my parents last week to drop Bud and do a couple things while we're near our old house or whatever, chiropractor and stuff like that. And I texted my friend Amanda, who's kind of been like coaching me through this along with Zad's sister. And I was like, I don't want to put this in the fridge and like reverse all this hard work I've already done. I know you can bring it back to life and all that, but like I was really excited because it was doing really, really well. And she was like, you're either going to have to fridge it. We were going to be gone like 36, 40-ish hours. She's like, you're either going to have to fridge it or take it with you. I was like, oh my gosh, I can take it with me. That's an amazing idea. So Zad put it in a Yeti holster. I don't know what you call it. The little sling carrier thing. Dropped my quart jar down in there and I carried it off 2 hours down the road, fed it at my mom's. My mom decided that she wanted to start one. So she started one too. And so that's there's a purpose of this story. I was feeding my starter part wheat flour, part all-purpose flour when I was home. And when I went to my mom, she didn't have any wheat flour, so I used half bread flour and half all-purpose. Well, it went crazy. Like mom's was like bursting out the top in this warm, sunny window or whatever. So all of that to say, I now am using all-purpose flour, except I have a barrel in the pantry that is mixed flour. It's a little bit of wheat, like not a lot. Like it's not brown, obviously. It's a little bit of brown specks. And it's just mixed flour. And I know someone's gonna be like, why would you even do that? After Zad's heart attack, I just did a lot of inventorying in the pantry and I combined all of them because I was like, we're not even gonna eat bread ever anymore. And obviously we do eat bread. We don't buy store-bought bread, and we really truly didn't really eat bread for like 2 years. Not like never, but very, very seldom. We'd buy like Dave's Killer bread at the store on occasion, but other than that, we really did not eat bread. So now that I have a groove with sourdough, I feel like I can actually like feed my family bread and I don't feel a ton of guilt about it. All right, so like everyone else, I feel like sourdough is so intimidating when you hear anyone talk about it. It seems like it's gonna be this thing you have to like watch constantly and whatever. And sort of, but I feel like you sort of like want to watch it all the time. This is like my, just another child. I feel like I added on at this point, but I'm okay with it. Like I love watching it. I love watching it grow. So I'm going to tell you, a few of my friends have reached out and said, I really want to start on this. I'm so overwhelmed. What do I need to do? And so there are a million videos out there about how to do sourdough. There's a million blogs out there about how to do sourdough. The thing that I've realized in the last few weeks as a newbie is you can literally, like with anything else, you can find the advice that you want to read, that you think makes sense. You can find whatever you want to read, like anything might work for someone. So the thing that I found, and the thing that I think is the coolest part about sourdough, is that all these factors like matter. So your house environment, the heat in your house, how the heat's distributed, like how warm is it at certain times of day, like your flour, like I have some random mixed flour here or whatever. So all of these things like really matter. The temperature of your water and stuff like that. What kind of water you have. I had this epiphany when I was at my mom's. They're on city water. They're not in the city, but they're like in a neighborhood kind of. And so they have like public water. And I'm like, crap, I need to use our water. Thankfully, we always travel with our water. So, because as far as I know, you don't want to use like anything that's chlorinated or treated or whatever. Do your own research about that if you have a different opinion. We use our spring water that comes off the mountain and it's been working awesome. So super, super simple, way easy to take care of this starter. So much easier than I thought it was gonna be. If you're local to me and you need some starter, I will be happy to pass some off to you. If you're near my mom, if you're like really, like close friends of ours or family, and you need some starter and you're down in Lancaster, I'm sure my mom would share. Hers was bursting out the top, so I know she has plenty to go around. So if you need some starter, more than happy to share, let us know. All right, so here we go. Here's my super messy jar. Some people are real anal. They like swap their jars every day. Some people wash their jars every week. Some people, it seems, they never wash their jars. They just scrape all the crap in and keep moving along. And however you want to do that part is totally up to you and your OCD and whatever you need to do for you, which is fine. All right, the rubber band is so we know where the starter is before we feed it or after we feed it. Okay, so this is where it was. Like, this was sitting over my wood stove last night. I'll show you the wood stove here in a second. I've shared that on social, and Zad put a shelf up for me so I can ferment honey and apple scrap vinegar and raised bread and the whole thing, and it's fantastic. So get a rubber band, put it on your jar. You can do this in a half-gallon jar or a quart. I don't know if I do a pint. That might maybe not work. It might work. It just, if it gets too excited, it'll probably overflow. So we have our, buddy, can you move? We have our jar here, and you definitely, I think you should use a scale, at least until you get super familiar with the measurements. So when I started this, I was doing 30 grams of water and 30 grams of flour, and I felt like it was just not getting enough. Like, it seemed hungry. My friend Amanda had told me, like, if it rises a little and then sinks, it's probably hungry. So I actually bumped up to 60 grams of flour and 60 grams of water. If I know I really want to have a lot of extra discard, like right now, everybody's home. There's 7 people that we're feeding. My parents are coming like for Christmas next week and whatever. So I want to make sure that I have a lot of good discard to make pancakes and all these other fun things that we like to make now that we have this great starter all the time. So we're going to do 60 grams. So you're going to put it on your scale and tear it out to 0. All right, and then we need to find a spoon. So as always, there's tons of conversation about should you use metal, should you use wood, should you use a silicone spatula, whatever you want to do. I feed my flour in with like just a regular spoon because it's not like touching anything. And then I either use a silicone spatula or a wooden spoon or whatever to stir it up. So I'm going to do 60 grams of my mixed flour. From what I've read, if you're doing like rye or wheat or something, because there's not as much gluten, it can be harder to rise. It absolutely can be done. You can do it, hold on. You can do it if you need gluten-free. I know that there's people that do gluten-free ones. We're not a gluten-free family, but something cool about sourdough is it lowers the glycemic index. So like if you are allergic to gluten or if you're watching your sugar and things like that, then this can be really great for you because it doesn't spike your blood sugar quite like traditional white bread would. So we got our 60 grams of flour. And again, you don't have to be like super anal. Like mine says 63. I promise it's all gonna be fine. You want like 100-degree water. Again, doesn't have to be the hot water, warm-ish, warmer water out of your tap will be fine. Our sink, so at this house. So the hot water heater is all the way over in the utility room, which is, it's a good little jaunt to the kitchen. And so it takes like 5 minutes for my kitchen sink to get hot water. We may try to fix that down the road, whatever. Apparently the PEX in the basement does this spidering business, and so it takes forever, and our root cellar is not like insulated, and there's all these things, and so it travels across the cold floor and all this. Anyway, so I go to the utility room, I get my hot water. I was taking the temp of it, and I'm trying to shoot for, like I said, 1 to 105 or 100 to 105. You don't have to like take the temp of it. That's totally up to you and how much you want to babysit it. So I'm gonna put in 60 grams of my lukewarm water, and then so it's, you know, gonna look, you know, like it needs stirred up. So you're just gonna get your spoon or your spatula or whatever down in there and get it good and stirred up. Bring up all the stuff from the bottom. And so like if you're totally starting this from scratch and you get a starter from a friend or like you order one online or however you do it, you know, you're gonna have your bit in the bottom. I personally, and this so confused me when I started this, I always, when I did this in the past, I pull, so I fed 60. I would pull 60 grams of starter and do 60 grams of starter, 60 grams of water, and 60 grams of flour. So I tried that when I first got this from my sister-in-law, and like I just was not having success. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna feed it right into the jar. Again, you can go, there's a million Facebook groups. Everybody has a different opinion about how to do this. I personally just feed right into my jar. I'm making something like almost every single day. So I'm not super worried. If I was maybe not gonna make something, I might only feed like 50-50, like 50 grams of water, 50 grams of flour. If I definitely know that, like this summer, it may wind up in the fridge because we just don't do a ton of baking in the summer. And I really set a goal this winter to, one, use up my barrel of flour. So if you are doing the pantry challenge with Three Rivers Homestead, I talked about that a little bit on social, on Facebook and Instagram. I have this barrel of flour, like big barrel, that I really want to work through. And so doing the pantry challenge is going to be an amazing way to do that. I want to get a grain mill so that we can fresh mill the flour, and that's always been a goal of mine to get to that point. So this winter, I'm really trying to practice baking and doing better with baking bread, and I mastered chocolate chip cookies. Maybe that seems like super trivial and silly, but like I've never been able to make like a really, really delicious chocolate chip cookie. And these ones that I made a couple days ago, they're already like all gone. Everyone demolished them. They were fantastic. Maybe I'll have to do a video on them because they're perfect. Anyway, so you're gonna get your flour and water and you wanna make sure you have a pancake consistency. This is a little thick in my opinion. You wanna get it a little more pancake-ish. So I'm gonna add a little bit more water just to make it a little bit more pancake battery-like. That was another mistake I made when I first started this, is it was too thick. I think part of the problem is I have this mixed flour and the wheat seems to suck up more moisture than the all-purpose flour does. And so if you're using all-purpose or bread flour, you probably are not going to need to add additional water. Typically, once I feed it, I'll scrape the sides down so that I can easily see where it is on the stove. So scraped down like that. And then we're just going to push our rubber band up. Maybe if it'll move, push that up to where it is. So what'll happen, and what's been happening, is since I've been feeding it like a good hearty amount, at least once a day. When I first started this, I was feeding it twice a day, which I would encourage you to do if it was fridged. Now, if you do all-purpose or bread flour, you might not have the problem. I didn't realize in the beginning, because I had this kind of a mixed flour, that it was a little bit of a slower grow. So you might not need to feed twice a day. So anyway, we're gonna put this here. I'm gonna put it on the stove. I'll show you what that looks like. I do, wherever my lid might be. I have a lid for this, I promise. Hold on, we gotta find it. All right, so I have just one of these like ball, one piece, leak proof, whatever lids. So I literally just set it on there like this. It can breathe a little bit. I was doing a coffee filter with a rubber band, but that was like, I had to change it every single day or twice a day when I was feeding it twice a day. And it was getting like crusty and hard, and then it would rip, and it was just annoying. So this works perfectly. It can breathe enough. So I'll go show you what my setup looks like on the stove. All right, so this is our wood stove. If you followed us at the old house, we brought this stove from that house. There was a stove here. It was okay. It wasn't as good as this one. This one does coal and wood, and we love it, and we spent a lot of money on it. So we just swapped them before we moved in. All right, so Zad put this shelf up for me. It's fantastic. I have apple scrap vinegar going, and I have lemon sage honey going, fermenting, which is fantastic. This shelf is the best because I can rise Bud. If Bud and I are baking, we can rise stuff on here like super quick. It's awesome. So what I typically do is I just set my starter right up on that shelf, and then most of the time, like, I feel like our hubs are like the kitchen and the living room. So I'm either in here working, watching babies, whatever, or in the kitchen baking, cooking, preserving something, whatever. So I can easily keep an eye on it. I do usually, when I started this, I was checking the temp of the starter. You should try to keep your starter in the like 80 degree-ish range, 75 to 85 or something. And on this shelf, it was getting a little too hot, especially by the middle of the day. It's not quite cold enough where we are to do coal yet, which stinks. But we have free firewood because we have 10 acres of woods here. So, you know, whatever. We're heating for free, and I can't complain about that. But in the morning when I start a new fire, because nobody comes down and feeds it, like, it's not getting so frigid that we need to get up in the middle of the night and feed it at this point. But if I put it on here by the middle of the day, it's just a little too warm, and I kind of cooked it one day. I had to start over. Thankfully, my sister-in-law gave me a whole pint of starter, and so there was plenty to keep restarting. And I had restarted this one probably 3 times before it finally was like good to go. So anyway, when I keep it up here, that works. So if you don't have a wood stove or like radiators or something where you can keep it warm. You could put it in a dehydrator, like take the shelves out and set your dehydrator at like 80. You could keep it in there. You could put it above your fridge, depending on what your situation is. So you might just have to figure out where it makes the most sense. So at my parents' house, they have like a really sunny window, you know, sort of similar situation to what we have, but our garage is here, and we maybe get like at this time of year, maybe the 4-ish o'clock sun might come in that window, but not really, and definitely not today because it's cloudy. So I can't really trust a window, and our kitchen's pretty cold. It's like 60 in here, which it would rise eventually. It's just so much better at the stove. So find a warm window, a radiator, your wood stove, wherever is gonna make sense for you. And like for us, above our fridge would not work because we have this silly cabinet which was installed terribly, and you can't even open this door because it hits the ceiling. So that's really helpful. So I can't put it above my fridge. You could keep it, I know some people that keep it like in the microwave. Obviously they're not microwaving it. It's just, it's not getting a draft. You could maybe sit it like in the stove. Figure out what works for you and where makes the most sense, where your toddlers will not like play in it and make nice little experiments. So that is it. So what is the next step? You've now fed it. You got your starter from somebody. You fed it. Now what do you do? So it's 3 o'clock. So in 2 to 4-ish hours, it'll probably have risen a good couple inches. And then that would be called like a bubbly, active, ripe starter, whatever you want to call it. It's going to smell great. It's going to have a lot of bubbles going on. And that's when I would start prepping my bread for tomorrow. So we don't eat, like I said, even now, we don't eat a ton of bread. Like I only really need to make like 2 loaves a week, if that. We don't need bread, but you know what I mean? There's a lot of great benefits of sourdough. So I am trying to work it into our diet now. But so I will go in a couple hours, probably like after dark, after I do the animals and whatever, I'll go pull that starter and I'll get out like my cup that I need to start like a bowl, or if I'm doing sandwich bread. So there's active starter and then there's discard. And I know there's always confusion about what the difference is. I mean, they're kind of the same, but not really. So active starter, active bubbly starter would be what you would use if you're gonna do like a bowl. Like it needs all the excitement and all of that. If you're gonna do something like discard pancakes or discard chocolate chip cookies, and say like I came down this morning and let's say I didn't feed it yesterday, you know, it's a little bubbly but not super bubbly, I could use that in like a discard. Or if I feed that like 200 grams of water and 200 grams of flour, and I have and I move it to a half-gallon jar, and I have all this extra, I could fridge that, and then like tomorrow or the next day, I could pull it out of the fridge, and I could use that in discard pancakes or discard waffles or discard brownies, or everything has a discard recipe. So I don't have any of my own recipes for this kind of thing. I have most of my recipes from Farmhouse on Boone, so I'll link her below. I feel like she's probably like the most prominent like sourdough person to follow. She has a lot of great recipes. I've been following her bowl recipe, whatever. And it's been working really great for me. The only thing I didn't have great success with was sourdough discard brownies. We made cream cheese icing though and put it on top, and cream cheese icing makes everything better, so it was still fine. And that was probably my fault because my starter hadn't really done a lot of good rising yet. So it was probably I'm sure it was my fault and like beginner problems. So the bowl and the pancakes are probably our 2 favorites. So like I said, I'll link her below. You can check out those recipes. But so then once you pull out your cup to do like your bowl, like tonight I'll pull out the cup, start the bowl, get the dough ready, let it rise overnight and whatever. Then I can either feed my starter again if I think like tomorrow morning I'm gonna do something else, or I could just pull out my cup, sit it above the stove, I could feed it tomorrow morning. It's so forgiving. Like that was my biggest fear, is I was so worried that I was just gonna kill it like all the time. And honestly, in the past, I probably didn't kill it. I just definitely didn't give it enough time. And like one time I tried to start with rye, which apparently is like super hard. We'll go down that path like at some later date. But I probably didn't kill it in the past. I probably just wasn't patient enough, which is why I decided in these winter months when I'm not doing a ton of canning and I'm really just freeze drying for the most part, no garden, pretty simple animal chores, it was a good time to really focus on this. So I know that was kind of a mouthful. I hope it wasn't too confusing. If you have questions about this, let me know. I tend to make things as simple as possible because, you know, we're busy. We have animals and we're running a business and we have 3 kids and, you know, Matt and Elle are here. We just have a lot of like dynamics going on. And so something that's super complicated, I am not going to stick with. And so I'm totally into this. I'm babysitting it constantly. I love it. I'm always trying to find new recipes. I'm getting ready to start a bowl tonight. And then I think tomorrow I'm going to try to do scones. I love scones and I'm such a scone snot. Like I love scones so much. So as we go through this process, I'll probably be showing you more sourdough stuff. So if you have questions about how this works or anything's confusing, let me know. We'll see you next time.